President Dwight D. Eisenhower was said to have met with aliens 3 times. The first meeting would take place at Holloman Air Force Base in 1955. Records state that he had a dentist appointment, but when you look it up, there's no evidence of the dentist or the appointment. He actually missed an important meeting he was supposed to be at the next day. His first meeting would take place with the Tall Whites, the Nordics. They are said to be a beautiful, inherently good race of alien. They would ask him simply to quit testing nukes, because when we fire them off, it affects space-time throughout the universe. And in return, they would give us their technology, and they would make sure our race succeeds. Well, per American standard, Eisenhower says no. We can't quit testing the nukes. The next 2 meetings would take place with the Greys, both at Holloman Air Force Base. A mechanical engineer who was on site drew this sketch of the alien's craft. The Greys wouldn't ask him to quit testing nukes. They would just ask him if they could test his people. Basically, they wanted to abduct us and run experiments. Eisenhower said, okay, just don't kill them, and they gave us their tech. In one of his 3 meetings with aliens, Eisenhower would gain some information. He would be told by the ETs where to put a military base. And this military base would be an underwater testing facility known as AUTEC, the Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center. It's located in Andros in the Bahamas. You can see it here. It is said they test things like USOs and investigate underwater military strategies. Why the ETs told them to build it here was because they claimed it was on ruins of Atlantis. And if you look on the map, this is located really close to the Bermuda Triangle. They even recently found ruins of pyramids on the west side of Cuba. I've often wondered that about the Bermuda Triangle. Is there a Stargate there? Or could it have to do with this Navy military base? Could the Navy be running tests on unsuspecting people? The ETs claimed that if they built it on Atlantis, they could use the power it produces for time travel. Look it up for yourself.
This home was previously owned by Britney Spears. On a recent podcast called We Need to Talk About Britney, Britney's former makeup artist joined the conversation. She said that while Britney was living in this home, she had some type of spiritual transformation, and she invited someone over who claimed to be a spiritual healer. But after the healer left, something didn't feel right to her. Britney said she thought the healer had opened some type of portal, and she claimed that there were evil spirits in her house trying to push her down the stairs. The situation must have scared her pretty badly because she left the home immediately when it happened and never returned. She then sold the house with everything inside to Brittany Murphy. And as many of you probably already know, Brittany Murphy died in that house under very suspicious circumstances, and her husband died 5 months after her in the same room that Brittany died in. Take a listen.
It was so bad that she left. She went to the Casa del Mar Hotel to stay there and never went back to the house again. She put her house on the market, and guess who bought that house? Who? And died in it. Brittany Murphy.
9 signs you may have a guardian angel continued. Number 6, you're hearing voices and whispers in your head. A lot of times, your guardian angel will talk to you, so hearing voices in your head may not necessarily be a bad thing. Number 7, you feel like you're never alone. If you're good at being by yourself and you're actually comfortable being alone, it's a good sign you may have an angel with you at all times. Number 8, sudden change in temperature in the room. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a cold change. Sometimes it can even be warmth. It's believed that if it goes cold, they're in the room with you. But if you get warm, they're actually giving you a hug. And last but not least, number 9, a tingling in the crown of your head. Spiritualists say that this is often a sign of an angel contacting you. It's the same tingling as you would get if your foot falls asleep. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully some of these signs apply to you. Comment here if they do. 10 signs you may have the presence of a demon. 10 is probably the most commonly known, and that's cold spots. Regardless of where your thermostat is or how warm it is, you'll feel a cold spot. Number 9 is hearing familiar voices. A lot of times demons will imitate somebody close to you, and they'll say your name in their voice. Number 8, oftentimes you feel like you're being watched. There will literally be nobody around, and you feel like somebody is watching you at all times. It's that uneasy gut feeling you get when you feel like somebody is stalking you. Number 7 is a disturbed sleep cycle. You'll get sleep paralysis and oftentimes have nightmares about dead people. Many people have also said they'll wake up constantly at 3:33 a.m. This is known as the witching hour. It gives demons extra power. Part 2 for more. Alright, let's talk about Lil Nas X mischief shoes that have a drop of human blood in them. Aside from the obvious, there's a lot more behind these shoes than meets the eye. First off, Nike claims not to sponsor them. They claim they don't back the shoe, but I don't understand how when they made it. Online, there's been a lot of collabs saying Lil Nas X is backed by the agenda. With these shoes, they're going to only release 666 pairs. And on the side, they're going to count which pair you get. These are supposedly a collaboration with the brand Mischief. And yes, you heard me right in the intro. They contain 60 cc's of human blood. They also say Luke 10:18 on them. Here's Luke 10:18. I saw Satan fall to earth like lightning from heaven. The shoes cost $1,018. The outside of the box has this creature on it. The inside, an image of the devil carrying Jesus off. What y'all think? In 1970, Russian scientists began drilling a hole in the Earth's crust to find out exactly what is down there. After sending a mic down to record the activity, it became known as the Hole to Hell. The project's location was in Siberia, where they would drill for almost 2 decades. But the excursion would end abruptly in 1989 when they punched into a cavern housing molten lava. This molten rock was burning at a blistering 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, so there was virtually no way to continue drilling through it. But before they closed down the project completely, one of the scientists had an idea. He wanted to send a microphone 12 kilometers deep into the cavern. So they made a mic that was heat resistant and it was able to get 17 seconds of recording before it burnt up. Here's what it sounded like. Discretion.
Things that I've heard from people in the Pentagon, that the buzzword in the secret of secrets in the Pentagon is the Sumerian gods are returning, and that's what they're referring to as that whole area that Peter.
Wow! Can you repeat that again, just in case anybody missed it? The buzzword
in the Pentagon, in the military circles that are in the know about the cover-up here, they kind of in whispered tones talk about the return of the Sumerian gods. And they're talking about the what we would call aliens or fallen angels returning into the Middle East, into Old Sumer area.
The Anunnaki.
Well, could be.
Under the other ancient names.
Do you think that has anything to do with why
we left Afghanistan? This comes from the Awakening the Truth 24/7 network. The lost city of Agartha discovered. A research team has discovered the lost city of Agartha, also known as the City of Crystals, located in Antarctica. As Admiral Byrd would describe in his diaries, it had rainbow hues of color. It also says that it's connected by an underground tunnel system to the Giza pyramids. The following is said to be video shot of the actual entrance to Agartha. The following cases are proof that time travel could actually be real. Number 1, a 1995 boxing match between legendary Mike Tyson and Peter McNeely. After a 4-year hiatus due to a subsequent rape charge, Tyson returned to the ring. The fight was nothing extraordinary, but he won by knockout in the first round. It wasn't until they reviewed the footage where they noticed something spectacular. Apparently in the first couple rows, a gentleman was holding a smartphone taking a picture of Mike Tyson, which is odd because they didn't introduce this type of smartphone until the 2000s. Number 2, a time traveler skips town. 44-year-old Andrew Carlson, seen here, would get arrested on January 28, 2003 in Toronto, Canada. The FBI would arrest him proclaiming insider trading in the stock market because in the course of over 2 weeks, he invested $800 and made a profit of $350 million. And after a 4-hour interrogation, he would admit that he came from 2256. The FBI would find no evidence of fraud, but a gentleman would bail him out on $1 million bond and they would disappear.
There's no inside structure.
Is it hollow?
Yeah, there's only a surface. There's nothing inside.
Is the sun actually, do you believe, combusting in on
It's
itself?
not burning anything. There's no fusion in the sun. That's well understood.
Proven.
Yeah, well, there's not a way to prove that there is any. It's only in the flares that you get fusion. That's why all the X-rays. The flares, the arcs, and the X-rays, and the microwaves, and whatever result of fusion in the arcs. There's no fusion in the sun. They don't know how the sun works.
Why do you? What's special? How does the sun make light?
It's a transformer. Transforms from some other dimension. It's not burning anything. It doesn't have to. It's a converter.
Of what?
I don't know. Nobody knows. But that's what it does. That's the only thing it can do, because that's how everything works.
Transforming from another dimension.
Yeah, you could say it's taking energy from another dimension, counter space. There's no energy, actually. You can't. Most of it you can't even measure in outer space or see.
You can't see.
No, you can't see the sun in free space.
So the sun is not visible in outer space.
Not in free space. It's only invisible when gross matter becomes involved, like the Earth's atmosphere and envelope and the surface of the moon or whatever. That makes the light. Otherwise, there is no light. You can see the moon, you can see the Earth, but you can't see the sun or you can't see the stars.
But you can see the planets and the satellite.
Right. You can see material objects, but you cannot see the sources of light. There is no light until there's a material object.
To reflect off.
So that means there's no time delay. So the whole time delay thing is meaningless. It doesn't take light years. There are no light years because there's no light. So that means that the light you see from the distant stars isn't 4 million years old. It could be only minutes old. It could be instantaneous. All the theories collapse when you can't see the stars in outer space.
Тогда пацана посчитать потери. Суммы нули погибают на сцене. Снова один прогуляюсь без тени. Заливая лик поцелуй.
People that are in control and power on this planet don't want this information to get out. God is not a man. God is a divine energy. And the shape of that divine energy is the flower of life. The frequencies that emanate from between these patterns literally jingles matter into existence. This image here is the flower of life atomically etched into a stone pillar at the Osirian temple in Egypt. The knowledge of this goes back 60, 70,000 years old.
Back in 2002, this California film crew would go missing in Antarctica. But what they may have discovered in the process is the subject of controversy still to this day. At the time, new updated satellite imagery had the entire world buzzing, as it was picking up anomalies all over Antarctica. This, coupled with the fact that military personnel were reporting that the US government was flying equipment down there, had the Atlantis TV production crew intrigued. So the team decided to go on an expedition to see what types of discoveries they could get on film. Once there, it wasn't long after they cleared the ice wall that they disappeared. Officials would waste no time. They'd call the Navy SEALs in to track them down. They'd never locate the film crew, but they'd discover something else. In an old supply dump near Russian Vostok research station, they would locate a tape. And it is said that when the SEALs played the footage, they were awestruck. And it was at that moment the missing team was no longer priority. Check out part 2 to find out what the team got on film. Like and follow part 2 immediately after. Missing film crew in Antarctica, part 2. After finding the tape left behind by the missing crew, the SEAL team would take it to the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station to watch it. And according to researchers working there at the time, the SEALs were awestruck after watching the tape. It showed evidence of a dig up to 2 miles below the Antarctica shelf. Not only that, but it provided video evidence of massive megaliths way below the ice. And though researchers said the SEAL team couldn't disclose much more, it is believed that they may have even found one of the greatest mysteries of all time, the city of Atlantis. So the controversy surrounding it. Atlantis TV station lawyers proceeded to try and get the tape back from the government. They planned on airing it to the public, but that's where the government said, no way. And even though their lawyers pressed the issue, they were never able to get the footage. And now Gov officials even deny its existence. So the battle for the video evidence still persists today. And unfortunately, they never found the missing.
At a top robotics company in Japan this week, 4 robots being developed for military applications killed 29 humans in the lab. The scariest part is that lab workers deactivated 2 of the robots, took apart the 3rd. But the 4th robot began restoring itself and somehow connected to an orbiting satellite to download information about how to rebuild itself even more strongly than.
Is there an alien base deep below the ice in Antarctica? According to World War II vet and founder of the International Flying Saucer Bureau, Albert Bender, yes. Bender claims and believes that he was abducted on several occasions during the 1950s, and that during one of these abductions, he would be taken to a secret alien military base below Antarctica's ice. There is where he would see giant landing strips for UFOs, and he would also claim to speak to the base commander. The base itself, he says, was cut out by large machines using plasma technology, incorporating metal structures into the ice as it went. When he first arrived, he recalls that it was so cold he could barely stand it. But with the help of alien technology, he became quickly acclimated. While there, the commander would tell him the history of the base that had been there for over 200 years. He would also learn that before him, German U-boat Schwabenland would visit at the end of World War II. So a few months back, I read about a gentleman's 5th experience taking a certain special mushroom. At the time, he was a renowned journalist in his mid to late 30s. But what this gentleman was using them for was much different than recreation. He wasn't a regular user, but he was trying to achieve something, and he told of this experience. The previous 3 or 4 times he had taken them, he had only seen shapes, like triangles, circles, and squares. But this particular time, he achieved something different. The following was his experience. After consumption, he would sit Indian style in the middle of his living room floor. Once again, he began seeing the usual shapes, triangles, circles, and squares. But about a half hour in, something changed. He began to feel this immense pressure on his body, a pressure like he had never felt before, and slowly he began losing his breath. He had to remind himself to relax, but as he did, the pressure kept increasing. The pressure continued to go up until right before he was just about to stop breathing. This is when he felt a large pull and almost a small explosion. Boom! It takes him a second to gather his bearings, but suddenly he realizes he's looking down at his own body. It hits him like a ton of bricks that he's back to normal, and he remembers everything, and that what he's staring at is himself and his vessel that seems to be in some sort of stasis. He even watches his chest bounce up and down just to be sure. He said he was in his purest energy form. Then, out of nowhere, a bright blue light begins to approach him. When he realizes who it is, he's ecstatic. It's his spirit guide. It's been so long, he can't believe it. They greet each other, and he begins weeping. He misses her so much. And as they ascend, he looks back at his body, and even his body is crying. When they finally reach his proper dimension, she explains everything. He has so many questions, but she's answering them as he thinks them to himself. He recalls the utter state of peace he was in, the state of being. He explains that all the problems of the world were gone, and he had no worries at all. He looks out and notices familiar light beings, but he cannot talk to them because he is in his tour on Earth. In that dimension, he has only been on his tour for days, not years, as time is much different in the light world. Then it hits him, his goal. He has a goal that he sets before he comes down to Earth. Then he said you are to select your parents. There may be a pool of 100 or 1,000. Then once he chooses his parents, based on which ones will help him achieve his goal on Earth, that's when you enter your human body as a baby in your mother's womb, as long as it's the first 3 months of pregnancy. Then you're born and forget everything, too. So 6 months after your light being is put into your vessel, you are born. He states that during the first couple years of your life, you can leave and re-enter your body as many times as you want. But eventually, after a certain age, this will stop. The overall goal is to achieve what you wanted to on Earth, and this will boost you to the next level of light being. The idea is to reach the highest dimension possible, but your light body must go through rigorous testing and learn as much as it can before it reaches this point. Eventually, his spirit guide looks at him and says it's time. He nods and says, "Yes, I understand." They say their goodbyes and he descends back to Earth, waking up in his vessel, his body. He says he knows he learned and talked of much more, but all he could remember were these details. He also goes on to say that in this lifetime, there are 5 other humans on Earth that you know in the light world. He has only met 1 or 2.